Welcome back. We have an episode today about the relief pitchers. The relief pitchers in TLG are pretty nasty right now. There's some crazy talent at the top, especially, so it's going to be a fun list to do. So it's going to be a fun list to do. Sorry, I had to pause it for a second there to fix something. So yeah, we're going to go through the reliever list here. We're going to start at the bottom here at 32. We got Jake Eder. Eder was pretty nasty Rule 5 pickup a couple of years ago. He isn't quite as good as he was before, so I had him pretty high in this list last year just because he was one of the better lefty arms, but he fell down quite a bit. We also had DL Hall take a little bit of a tumble. DL Hall, I had pretty high. He had a decent season last year, struck out 30% of guys. Guys only hit 219, but he was a little bit worse this year, so he fell a little bit too. But still decent. Both a couple nice lefty arms there. They got Blake Brazile was the first new addition to this list. I got him at number 30. Brazile is Rule 5 pick from a couple years ago. Really solid seasons last couple of years. Not super elite, but really good ratings and over 1 WAR and always in the high 2s or low 3 FIP. So pretty solid dude. Another dude that caught my eye was this pitcher for the Dodgers. Got some really nice control ratings. I put him on the list. He's on pace for 1.4 WAR this season. Had a really good time over there with the Dodgers so far. In 44 innings, he's got a 2.7 FIP and a 0.8 WHIP. So just a really nasty profile with 4 really good pitches. Could almost be a starter with the lower little stamina, but it is 35 with 4 pitches, so you probably could actually get away with starting him. Really like his profile, but really nice control middle reliever there. Has had some nice success there and with the Dodgers. Next up, we have Zhang. He has been a beast the last couple seasons. He was really high in this list last year, but has had a really bad year, so he fell quite a bit this season. His home runs have skyrocketed, and the stuff's gone down quite a bit, but I'd imagine that's just a bad year. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if he's back in the top 5 next year with a huge bounce-back season. The guys always kind of play bad when they're angry and stuff, so he fell down quite a bit, but a really talented dude. I just felt should still be on this list. Ian Hamilton was another guy that has had a really bad year. Actually, I was going to say really bad. He's got a 0.9 WHIP, but just the home runs are a little bit up. Strikeouts are quite a bit down from the last 2 seasons. He was at 29, 28. Now he's down at 22. A really good opponent batting average still. The home runs are just a bit up. So just a good reliever, having a little bit of a meh year. Next up, we have my boy Loyo. Has crazy ratings, so I threw him up here on this list. Really high FIP, really low WHIP. Probably could be a little bit higher in this list. Had a really nice season for me. Just kind of seems to be, just had some bad luck. Just had a bunch of games where he just seems to keep blowing close games. Seems to be pitching really well and games are winning by a lot, so just hasn't been super clutch for me this season, but probably could be quite a bit higher in this list. Next up, we have Luke Little. Luke Little has one of the most powerful fastballs you will ever see. I think in real life he throws like 105. The guys are only hitting 175 off him. The home runs and walks are both really high, which is why he isn't higher in this list. Got the lower control, but he's on pace for 2.2 WAR. Just a crazy power arm there. 3.0 FIP, on pace for 113 innings, which is a big. So he's like a starter. With that 55 stamina on 4 pitches, 3.5 pitches, whatever you want to call that change up. Just a really big power arm there. It's a really cool player. Next up, we have Joel Ford. Joel Ford is a huge power arm with some nice control. Just is getting a little bit hammered on home runs this season in San Francisco. 1.2 home runs per 9 in that ballpark's really bad, but he should be probably top 10 reliever in baseball the next few seasons if he can stop letting up so many home runs. This guy's got crazy cutter changeup combination, which is really nasty. Really good hold. He's a lefty, 6'2", power arm. Just a really nasty overall profile. Next up, we have Aiden Hauser. Aiden Hauser is at number 23. Adrian Hauser's been paid a ton of money in the last few years. I think he's got 16, 23, and 15 million in the last 3 years in Milwaukee and then a couple seasons in Colorado. And this year his home runs are quite a bit up, which is why he hasn't quite been that crazy dominant 3 and 2.4 WAR player. But other than that, he's been pretty much the same pitcher. The hits are a little bit up too. He's averaging 2 more hits per 9 innings this season. The guys are hitting all the way up to 288 against him, so definitely not as dominant as he's been the last 2 years. But wouldn't be surprised if he bounced back in the second half and lowered that home run total a bit. Really nice overall pitcher. Matt Dominguez. I don't want to say Matt. Robert Dominguez, my my own dude. All these Dominguezes. So yeah, Sir Anthony Dominguez has been an absolute freak. for me for a long time. It hasn't quite played up to the ratings, but hasn't played far off him either. Had a really bad season in 2025 for me with over a 4 FIP, but every other season's been in the low threes pretty much. And he had a 2.4 FIP season early on there with 2 WAR year, but just a really, really high strikeout guy, always about 30%. The walk rate's down a bit this year. The home runs are quite a bit down. The strikeouts are also down a little bit, though, and guys are hitting a little better off him, 270. But the BABIP's been really unlucky, 391 this year. So another guy that probably is more of a top 5 reliever in baseball, but hasn't had that one breakaway, like 2.5, 3 WAR seasons as some of the other guys in this list have had. But a really, really nice overall player for sure. Medina is next up on this list. Irvin Medina is a guy that's had a really bad injury. He's out for the season, but ratings-wise, he's about as good as it gets in baseball. 70, 60, 70 is just ridiculous for the big three. Has that crazy sinker and slider. All these pitches that go down, probably turn into more of a ground ball guy. Just a crazy 56% ground ball rate in the limited innings this year before the injury. That guy is elite reliever written all over him for sure. Speaking of elite relievers, I love Zach Birdie. Zach Birdie is a freak. Zach Birdie has 80 stuff and 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and he has a really nasty slider. He's got 3.3 FIP, striking out 30% of guys. The walks are up a little bit, probably should be about 7 or 8%. The home runs are okay. Guys are hitting 3/4. Just a really solid overall late inning guy. Noah Song is nasty. It's the same profile as Birdie with that 80 and 50-50 kind of stuff. The movement's a little lower, but so the home runs are quite a bit up. But just a monster strikeout guy. Striking out 36% of guys, has that huge 80 stuff rating. 3 elite pitches. Pitches are about as good as anyone's in baseballs. On pace for over 2 WAR. The guy's just turned into a top-notch reliever there for Pittsburgh. Next up, we have Jorge Guzman. Guzman is, or George, however you want to say that, probably Jorge. But the guy's got 75 fastball, 100 miles an hour, just like the last couple guys on this list. On pace for 2.1 WAR. Reward him super high in this list for how nasty the strikeout and walk combinations have been. Guys are only hitting 150 off him. He's been utterly dominant this season. Has super high pitching leverage index at 1.7. It's about as high as it gets in baseball. It's probably a couple guys above that, closer to 2, but not too many. 1.7 is really high, so pitching some really important innings in Boston, really limiting the home runs, 0.4 per 9, so just been a really, really dominant player this season. Probably should be a few spots higher in this list, actually, now that I think about it. Dennison Lamit has been crazy. He's been 40% strikeout guy, 2.6 FIP, just a freak of nature. Guys are hitting 139 off him. Just insane stats early on so far. Next up, we have his teammate, Chad Sabolga. Guys are hitting 157 off Sabolga. He's got 35% strikeout rate, really good 2.8 FIP, and a 0.9 WHIP. Just a crazy season out of him too. So those two teammates in Atlanta have just been knocking skulls there. Nebel's next up on this list, the Bird Dog. Nebel has the 60 movement, so he limits the home runs really well. The strikeouts are quite a bit down. I don't know if he lost some stuff. He did. The velocity went down a couple ticks. He did go from 80 to 75, so the strikeout rate's gone from 33 last season, 30 and then 33 and then down to 27 this season. So the guy is weirdly not seemed to play up to the ratings until this season. This year he's on pace for a pretty good year, but guys are only hitting 144 off. It's just crazy. The WAR number's not very high because he doesn't pitch a ton of innings, but if you look at his numbers, it's just pretty crazy. Seems to be a lot better than those WAR totals. Guy had 3.9 FIPS, not too bad, but probably should be even better than his statistics show. Guy has crazy ratings. Nebel probably should have had Guzman and Lamit above him though. Rasmussen is up next at number 14 on this list. He is probably, I could have a little bit higher. I thought he was getting a little lucky this year with the home runs against, with only 40 movement. And he has 0.3 home runs per 9. I know that stadium helps quite a bit, but just a dominant year in Detroit. Guys are hitting 214 off him. The strikeout rate's up to 37%. The home runs are so low. The FIP is just crazy low. The WHIP's still 1.2, so like I said, he's getting a little lucky. His stats are juiced a little bit because the home runs are so low. Just an absolute freak, though. Just been having a really historically good season there for Detroit, which is really cool to see. Bednar is another guy that's really high on this list because he's limiting home runs like crazy. 0.4. I know those other Pittsburgh guys are all getting a little bit hammered on home runs. Bednar is not, though. He has been really solid for them. A 2.9 FIP. The WHIP is pretty low. Those walk rate's really nice at only 7%. Strikeouts are a little lower in some of those firearm guys on this list that throw a little harder. But it's just been the home runs have been so low. He's got had a little bit better season than those guys below him. That 1.47 leverage index too is pretty good. So pitched in some important innings there in Pittsburgh in the late innings. Blake Taylor is next up on this list. Blake Taylor is one of the best lefties in baseball. He's got crazy ratings. Having a little bit of a down year. I still put him up high in this list because I thought he was getting a little unlucky. Just with this season he's having so far, his ratings are just so elite. I thought I didn't really want to have him much lower than number 10 on this list, as he could probably be one of the best relievers in baseball each season with those numbers. As you can see, the last few years, he's been 2.5 and 2.2 FIP guy, so it's definitely having a down year this year, but not crazy bad. The weird thing is the home runs are so much higher. As you see, last year, the WAR was 3, but that was a 1.3 WHIP. So the overall walks and hits are way down this year at 0.9. He's just the unlucky with the home runs. So that's why I had him so high in this list. I think he's closer to that player he was the last 2 years, which is a top 5 or 10 relief pitcher in baseball. Number 11 on this list, we have Kyle Mueller. Kyle Mueller is having a crazy season. He is striking out 30% of guys, walking 10%, but also limiting the home runs. That's the main thing you notice. The guys high on this list are having a good season against the home run, really. So all these relievers always have pretty similar K and walk ratios. It's just all about limiting the contact and the home runs. Guys are hitting 190 off them, but it's just the home runs are really low. On pace for almost 3 WAR and a heavy workload. Been a big-time stopper. Next up, we have Andy Gutierrez. Andy Gutierrez has been super nasty for Texas, striking out 37% of guys. Guys are hitting 180 off him. The 2.3 FIP really is sparkling, and 0.9 WHIP. The leverage is pretty low. He's not pitching that super high impact 8th and 9th innings in close games very often, but the everything's just been pretty electric about him. If he can just keep those home runs down over his career with only 40 movement, he'll be a top lefty in baseball each year. Really, really nasty overall arm power. And next up, we have Ben Bowden. Ben Bowden is having a crazy good start to the year. Still doing really solid, but not quite as historically good as he was the first 2 months. But just insane 1.8 FIP. Guys are hitting 200 off him. The leverage is about as high as it gets in the league, 2.3, which is just insane. 35% strikeouts, 6 hits per 9. Just been overall sparkling everywhere. FIP, WHIP, ERA, the strikeout rates, everything. The home runs are so low. Just been crazy nasty. All these guys up here in the top 8 are just so good. So surprising he's only at 8, but if you look at some of these guys above him, he makes sense why. Tyler Gao is next up. Gao has 3.1 WHIP, WAR projection here. The guy is a 1.0 WHIP, a 2.6 FIP. The guy's striking out 37% of guys, walking 8. The home runs are down. So really similar stats. Kind of all these guys are pretty tightly grouped together. Just an explosive young arm. 23 years old, should be one of the top relief pitchers in baseball for a long time. Next up, we have my guy, Yona Abar has 75 slider. The guy has crazy low home run rates each year. That's one of the best pitchers in baseball, probably the best pitcher in baseball, not letting up home runs. 0.5, 0.1, and 0.3 the last 3 seasons. Each season, the WHIP has been pretty much the exact same. The FIP has been sub 3 each year. Crazy amount of innings workload. Could almost be a starter. I always have him as the crazy stopper in the bullpen. Just one of my favorite players I've ever had. Sub 200 batting average each of the last 3 seasons. Pretty much every season's career has been low 2 or high 1s. The wild pitch is pretty limited for a guy that has such explosive stuff. Really nasty at pretty much everything. 2.1 WAR already. 80 innings. He's on pace for 131 innings as a stopper, which is crazy. Just been an absolutely amazing season for me so far. Just kind of cost me that last game there, unfortunately. Next up, we have Ben Maurice. Ben Maurice, I didn't want to seem too biased. I have 2 of my guys ranked this high, but it'll make sense once you see the stats. Ben Maurice was my first-round pick a couple years ago. That was the most developed college arm in the draft. He just fell a little bit because guys don't like taking relievers quite that high. He was a little bit of a borderline starter, but the guy has just been insane. He's got a 2.4 FIP. The batting average 151 against. What really stands out is the strikeout rate is about as high as it gets in the league, minus a couple guys at the top here. 42%. Almost everyone on this list has been mid-30s we've gone over. 42 is just a different level there. The hits only 4.7 per 9, which is ridiculous. Most guys are at 5 or 6 or 7. The opponents are only getting on base 221 on base percentage. The whip is 0.7. Just, I called him up a month or 2 into the season. I gave him a few starts, kind of delay his service time a little bit. And he's also a lefty, by the way, with all this. He's a high leader. Pretty much got the whole package. About the best fastball in baseball, 101 miles an hour, 80 stuff, 80 fastball. Just been remarkable. I knew he'd be good. I didn't think he'd be quite this good. Just a guy that's going to be super talented and an elite reliever for years. One of my favorite skill sets I've seen out of a reliever. Next up, we have Catlin. It's crazy looking at these top guys. All these guys are just so good. Mike Catlin was a guy that came over in a big trade. They gave up a couple of defensive players in Santana and Gordon, and then they gave up the big-time bat who had a 4.3 WAR season last year, and he's on pace for 4.5 this year. 44 home runs. So they gave up a big-time left field, really good defender, good base stealer. Actually, no, but base stealer. Weird rating. He has 70 ratings, but he's only got 3 and 6. That's weird. But yeah, overall, really good bat. Gave up but in return, they got a young lefty. Him and Maurice, I had back-to-back in the rankings here. Both have been about the same. Both about mid-40s in strikeout percentage. Both guys. Opponent's batting average is about the same. One's like 150, I think, for my guy, 180 for Catlin. Catlin's home runs are quite a bit higher, but I just put him one spot up just because he's proved it for more innings this year. Maurice probably been a little bit better, my guy, but Catlin's just had such a heavy innings workload. I thought, and he's done it in Coors also, so I just figured those two guys are pretty tightly grouped together. Just didn't want to seem biased, but my guy ahead. But both guys are just insane. Probably fight for some reliever of the year awards over the next few seasons for sure. Both guys are insane. Next up, we have the top 4. These guys are really nasty. And first on 4 here, we have Leovani Rodriguez for Pittsburgh. I put him up here because of the consistency for years. I think Maurice and Catlin, some of those guys maybe having a little bit more statistically dominant seasons, but Rodriguez just been so consistent for so long. He's had 4 straight incredible seasons in Pittsburgh. He is pitching super important innings, 1.7 pitching leverage. The 30% strikeout rate, but the walks only at 6%, which is pretty low. The hits are pretty low. The batting average is pretty low. The FIP's pretty low. As I said, the overall stats this season probably aren't quite as dominant as some of those guys. The next few guys we have in this list, Catlin, Maurice, Abarn, Gao, and Bowden, have just all been really dominant, but it's just the amount of innings Rodriguez pitches and the consistency. It's not quite, like I said, quite as dominant, but he's still really, really, really good, and he just keeps doing it year after year. And sub 1 whip every single season. The home runs are limited every single season. The walks are low every single season. As you can see, like I said, consistency is the name of the game. So I thought he definitely deserved to be up there at number 4 for those reasons. Next up, we have Josh Hader. Hader is actually only number 3 on the list this season. No slight on him. It's just the top 10 is just so dominant that there's actually 2 guys I had above him, but we'll see in a second here. But Hader's just been nothing short of dominant yet again with a 46% strikeout rate. The hits per 9 are about as low as you'll ever see, 3.8. The batting average, 127. Like, you just can't hit this guy. The home runs at 1.0. That's the only thing, is that low movement rating. So sometimes he lets up some home runs, extreme fly ball and low movement. But if he does, pretty much he strikes out like 50% of batters. You just really can't do much against this guy. Always really consistent, just crazy innings workloads. Just amazing. One of the best. Might go down as the best reliever of all time when it's all said and done in the TLG career with all those reliever of the year awards. Just been a freak of nature for a long time now. I actually had James Karinchak one spot ahead. I just thought Karinchak was just so much more consistently dominant because the innings are way lower, but just the home runs are so much lower. I feel weird about Hader. I know, like, I played him a couple times and hit like a 2-3 run bomb off Hader in the past couple of years. I just feel like I'm not quite as scared. Like, when Karinchak comes in the game, it's just mentally, you're just like, it's over. Like, the guy's just so ridiculous. Guys hit 145 off him, but he just doesn't let up anything. It's 2.2 FIP. Last year's 1.8. Season 4 is 2.6, 2.6. Like, every single season, it's like the runs are just so low. The hits per 9 are so low. It's just the fact that his walks are quite a bit up, but it's just the strikeout rate so high. It's just like I said, the difference is just the home runs. So I really like that 0.4, 0.6 home runs each season is just compared to Hader's like 1.0, 1.2 is just the difference for me. It's just probably a little style preference. I know a lot of guys would probably put Hader above Karinchak, but something about Karinchak is just gives me the chills, man. Like that whole 6'4", 80 fastball, 90 mile an hour fastball with the 380 pitches, pretty much just coming in the game late. It's like it's good night. But anyways, just kind of being technical, picking between these top guys here. Any of those top 10 really could be in this top 5 or 3. It's just been such an incredible reliever class we've had. Next up, we have Brandon Barriera. He is number 1 on this list. I could not put him number 1. He is on pace to have the best reliever season in the history of baseball. He's already at 3.6 WAR at the All-Star game. The guy has the highest strikeout rate, I think, in the history of baseball at 55%. Most of this is because I wouldn't say most, give him his fair due, but obviously because of Austin Hedges as a lot of the success. There's a few guys on this list that pretty much have the exact same ratings as Barriera. I think the stuff is probably pretty close to 100 because if you don't play with the 80 max, a lot of those guys will say 80, but it'll list them as starting pitcher and say 70, and then it gets bumped to 80 when they move him to the bullpen. But if you look at his profile, he was at 80 stuff when he was listed as a starting pitcher. So it's at least 10 to 15 higher than that because when you have 280 pitches and high velocity, it'll bump it at least 10, probably 15. So I'd imagine his stuff is actually 95. If you go to the editor on the offline modes, you'd probably be like a 230 out of 250 or something ridiculous. So he's probably got the highest stuff in the game. Him and Karinchak are probably pretty close to like 90, 95 stuff. Barriera just has to have that kind of strikeout rate. And Hedges helps a bit, but not that much. Like without Hedges, he'd probably be at like 42, 44% strikeout rate, maybe 48. With Hedges, it's like in the mid 50s. The guy is 3.4 hits per nine, which is the lowest I've ever seen, I think. The batting average is probably also the lowest I've ever seen. I don't know if I've ever, in the history of TLG, in the history of Out of the Park, ever seen a lower than 116 batting average against. Just outrageous numbers, absolutely outrageous. The crazy thing is, if you go to the leaders of the league and sort by, if you sort by minimum innings 25, and then you do all pitchers, and you sort by WAR, you'll get all the starters and everything. If you sort by FIP, you get Barriera at the top there. And if you look at the stats across the board, just no one's even close. He's at 55% strikeout rate. No one else is above 46, 47. You got Little, Karinchak, and a few of those guys in the mid 40s, and you saw you have this group of like 6 guys in the 40s here. He's at 55. It's just stupid, absolutely stupid. The walk rate's right about the same as those guys too. The WHIP is about the same, but the FIP is just so much lower because he just doesn't let up hits and home runs. If you look at the FIP, it's the best in the league. Drew Rasmussen, like I said, has a pretty insane season 2, and Ben Bowden. Some of these guys have just been really elite. Anything under 3 is really good. So every single guy in this list is ridiculous. I didn't actually see Butcher. I missed him. He's been really nasty. I probably should have had him. I think since he was listed as a starter, I missed him when I was doing the relievers. Probably another guy that would be on this list that I missed. I probably could have had just Smith on this list. I felt weird leaving him off. I probably should have had him somewhere near the bottom there. Guy has a really nasty season too. But yeah, if you're looking at stats, I just use these filters. They're really helpful. But yeah, just Barriera is just really on a different level. Absolutely disgusting. So anyways, that's it for the list. I'll show you here on the right side of the screen. As you can see, number 1 here, Barriera, Karinchak, Josh Hader, and all the way down the ones we just did. So now you can see all 2 of these categories of the 2 episodes we've done so far. Really, really crazy pitching in TLG right now. I can't believe how good some of these relievers are. All these guys highlighted actual started down here. Pretty much each one of these guys is in the top tier there. The top 9 is just so ridiculous. You got so many elite lefties here with all the yellow guys being lefties. It's crazy. So out of my top 12, I think, 9 of the top 12 are lefties. The only righties are Karinchak, Rodriguez, and Gao. So actually just an insane amount of elite lefties in TLG right now, and the relievers wise. Starters not quite the same. They have a lot of righties, only a couple lefties up there. But yeah, it's pretty nasty class right now. So that was a lot of fun to do those 2 pitching episodes. That's it.